everybody. It's Angela Ardolino with Your Natural Dog, and my guest today is Poppy Phillips of Equine Alternatives. She's also one of my favorite people on Facebook because she has incredible Facebook groups, from her canine cancer group to holistic alternatives for pets. She's gone through a great journey of health with herself and with her horses. She's helped so many other pet parents with homeopathy and herbs and holistic ways to heal your pets. We have a wonderful conversation today. Covers cancer, homeopathy, and what we can do to help our pets live long, happy lives. We're back with Poppy Phillips. It's so nice to have you. I feel like I went from not even knowing who you are to getting to interact and do like 2 or 3 things with you in the past couple of months. So it's been really fun. I'm so glad I found you. And I love how we found each other, which is, putting our stories out there and talking about our experience will bring us all together so that we can spread our word. But you had posted on your incredible Facebook group with Holistic Animal Insights, right?
Yeah, and the Cancer-Free Canine.
And the Cancer-Free Canine, you had put out there, hey, is there anybody else who's had incredible luck with using natural alternatives to help their dog with dogs who are suffering from cancer? And someone I knew went, I know someone, and then that's how I found you, and we got to talk about it. So I love that we have that in common, because I know when you have that diagnosis of cancer for your pet that, of course, we went against the grain. We went non-conventional. We went to more holistic means because that's what worked out in our own personal lives, and then had great success. And then now we want to scream it from the rooftops so that more people can be brave. But tell me about your cancer journey. And then I know that you had a health scare. So I'd love to talk about that, how you even got to. So maybe we should start with that. When did you realize that convention was failing you and that you needed to do something and figure out something fast?
So one of my backstories, I guess there's like multiple levels of everyone's story, right? It just builds upon builds upon builds. And so I had strep throat 6 times in 3 months. And the conventional doctors basically looked at me and said, there's nothing we can do for you. You're antibiotic resistant. Go home. And I was like, no specialist, like no hospital, no urgent care, like just go home. And they're like, yeah, you're out of luck. Good luck. Go home. So I went home, and I was just like, now what? And I was a horse trainer at the time. I had like 18 horses in training. I was like from like 8 in the morning till 8 at night. I had this booming business, and I couldn't do it. And I was just like, wow, this is a career ender for me. And one of my clients gave me this crumpled up piece of paper and said, call this guy. He can cure anything. And I was like, anything? Are you sure? Like, that's a pretty broad statement, and I had no options. So I called him, and he was like, can you get to my house? And I'm like, look, I'm running a fever. I'm really delirious, and I don't think I can make it. And thankfully, we're like 10 miles apart. I was living in Thousand Oaks, California at the time, and he was in Simi Valley. And so he's like, just take the back roads. I'm all, okay. So wow. I took the back roads. I showed up on his doorstep. I knocked. That's the last thing I remember. I fainted. I passed out.
This is like straight from a movie.
I know, it was crazy. I wake up to this little older Jewish man running smelling salts across my face and dragging me by my armpits into his house. Like, it almost felt a little Hannibal Lecter. Like, I was just like, what have I gotten myself into at this point? And thank God he was short and old, because if he was like some big, strong guy, I'd probably be like super alarmed. And I was just like, what is going on? And he's like, it's okay. You fainted. I've got you. You know, it's going to be all right. So he revived me. Smelling salts actually really work. I had no idea. Like,
I've never experienced them. I can't imagine.
You know, it's such old school stuff that we forget about. And it just brought me back. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, that's actually something that's legit. So I was shocked on so many levels and kind of dumbfounded and like groggy. And he starts doing this arm strength testing, muscle testing technique on me. And I had no idea what he was doing. Like, it looked like voodoo.
And tell our listeners what that is, because I know it does look like voodoo, and people don't get it, and it is so accurate. It's crazy. So tell people what it is.
It's almost creepy. So it's an arm, like you put your arm out to the side of your body straight out, and this practitioner would put maybe a vial of some sort of pathogen or toxin or something in your hand, and then test your resistance by pushing down on your arm, and you push up. And so he dialed it down to a pesticide. And being a horse trainer, I'm outside all the time, surrounded by orange orchards in the Ventura County. So every time the wind blew, I would get strep throat, and I didn't realize that. And he nailed it down to this specific pesticide and did this like acupressure thing on me. Never got it again. Like, in 48 hours, I was clear. He treated me twice in like 24-hour intervals. To this day, I've never had strep throat again. Like, the guy was
you're a believer.
I was like, okay.
And what does he call himself?
He called himself a naturopath. He's now since gone, unfortunately. He was a nuclear researcher in nuclear medicine.
Wow.
Hold on. So he was a published research scientist in nuclear medicine, was invited on this muscle testing study, and also a biochemist. So he was making drugs for drug companies, and loved the result of the muscle testing research that he was doing, closed his practice, went underground, was word of mouth only, kind of a cash only, word of mouth only, out of his house kind of thing. And started then. And that was back in 1995. Like, he told me to go off gluten in 1995.
Wow.
I was probably the first gluten-free person on the planet.
People were like, what is that?
I know. My parents were just like, nobody's going to love you because you're gluten-free. And then years later, my dad goes, you know, Lance Armstrong's gluten-free. I'm like, yeah, Dad, a lot of people are.
How funny. Well, it's interesting because most people go down that road, especially with their pets. And we've learned now that doctors aren't taught in diet and nutrition, and they're most of the time taught by a school that a pharmaceutical or a hospital is controlling what gets taught anyway. But you go down that road where, and I've seen it, and I'm sure you've seen it thousands of times now, where the first thing that's being written is an antibiotic.
Yeah.
And then
I fought with veterinarians about it in my own clients, because from that moment, you know, I went from being a horse trainer to, whoa, this is a whole new world that everybody needs to learn about. And he actually mentored me. He took me under his wing and mentored me. So that that was amazing. It kind of was a career ruin for me, but that's okay. It turned out fine.
Well, same thing happened to me. I mean, I discovered cannabis medicine and it worked for my rheumatoid arthritis. And I literally sold my business and threw myself into it because I could not believe how I found something that relieved all my pain, also helped with my stress and anxiety. And yet it was illegal and it had no bad side effects, had all these amazing qualities. So journey was the same for me. So tell me about your dog's, cancer journey. So I'm sure you've had other things happen, but I'm sure when you got that diagnosis, you kind of felt like okay, here we go again.
Well, it's interesting because actually none of my dogs have had cancer, but I know. Isn't
so what
crazy?
The heck made you start the dog cancer series part?
So I was working on horses primarily, and I kept getting calls. And this is back in the 90s. So I started Equine Alternatives in 1998 and was muscle testing horses, doing some custom blended herbs, doing body work, essential oil, acupressure therapy. And I kept getting calls for dogs. And I'm like, I don't really know dogs, but since you guys are desperate and you're willing to try, I'm willing to try too. And so was getting some cancer cases in and actually having success with it. And I was
Were you already treating horses with cancer?
Horses don't get a lot of cancer.
Why?
So
Why is that?
Because they're vegan.
So I know melanoma is one because I've dealt with that.
Gray horses are prone to melanoma, but it's not normally life-threatening. And we are seeing more cancer in horses now. We didn't used to spray the hay with Roundup and all the things we do now. Now we see lots of metabolic issues, lots of chronic diseases in horses. Oh. But when I was a kid, our horses lived to like 33, 35 with like little issues. Now you're lucky if you get a horse to live past like 20, 22.
Wow. So it's the same thing that's happening to our dogs.
Yep. It's universal, just all the inflammatory responses. So yeah, I just started helping people with their dogs and getting some results. And I really didn't know much about dogs. I kind of got thrown into it. And then people handed out my number, just like the person that handed me Lou's number. And it just started going. And I tell people, I don't really know much about dogs. I'm not a veterinarian, here we'll just do what we can do. And there weren't a lot of holistic vets at the time. So, it was grim and bleak and the Wild West. And so I was willing, they were willing, I was having some success. So I've had tremendous success on anal gland cancers, like 100%. Awesome. Turnaround. Amazing.
What do you do? Tell me.
I just do diet change and homeopathy and herbs, but it seems what I've noticed is there's a consistency to nightshades. And so doing the homeopathic remedy belladonna seems to reverse it like quickly. Like I've had on all my anal gland cases, none of them had to go in for surgery. None of them had to be removed. And some of them were gone in less than 2 weeks. And the vets were like, oh, it must have been a misdiagnosis. Like,
that's what I love. That's what I love. And that's why I love having this conversation with you, because you were like me, where you're like, okay, I learned this about cannabis, about mushrooms, about this herb, about ozone, about diet. I'm going to apply it. And then you do, and it works. It exceeds your expectations. And then you think to yourself, how does a vet not know about this? How did I just do this how did I just get rid of cancer? That's really funny is I thought for sure when I put cancer into remission or beat records that I'd get some attention. And it was just same thing. It must be something else. It must not be cancer. You must have misdiagnosed it. And I'm like, now I have to prove that it was the cancer and that we did use. So I've gotten to the point, which I'm sure you have. I know veterinarian oncologists who turn to herbs and cannabis first before going to conventional methods. So to us, we're like, yeah. To you, I'm sure you're like, finally.
Yes. No, I am. Because, now I can send people places. Now I'm like, okay, I didn't go to vet school. I didn't go to anything dog related.
But Poppy, you wouldn't have learned anything in vet school, anything about cancer or how to treat it. So why bother even saying that? Why do we put so much pressure on a veterinarian? There are very few. Oncology in veterinary medicine is only like 5 years old. And the whole industry, I have this wonderful chart, I think I showed it to you before, showing the growth of oncology, where it's going to be $1 billion market by next year. So it's not there for the animals. It's there for somebody to make a lot of money. So what we have, I can't even remember the statistics. It's like 1 in 5 dogs now is going to get some sort of cancer.
1 out of 1.6 after 10.
Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
So we're going to talk about it a lot, and we want those people to know that, those pet parents to know that you do have a choice. There are alternatives. You do not have to immediately go cut that tumor out or cancer out. When you do that, not only do you make a huge impact on their immune system and their ability to fight it, but you're not getting rid of the cancer. It's going to come back. You can't just cut it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
The tumor is the disease expression, not the disease. The disease is within the body.
Exactly.
You've got to treat the body as a whole. You have to clean up the environment, the terrain. And so hitting it at root causes. So one of the fun things I discovered that actually got proven by science later is some of these tumor-based cancers, when I was muscle testing them, I was getting that there was some sort of pathogen that was related to vaccines or some like disease, kind of like Lyme's or something like that. So I started using the homeopathic remedy Lenum, and the tumors were falling off in like 72 hours, like just bloody popping out. Like my owners were calling me going, oh my God, the tumor just fell off and is rolling on the ground. I'm like, oh, okay. And
it's like, amazing. And so this is an herb?
It's a homeopathic remedy, and it's fun because several years ago, they did a study on dissecting tumors and doing some diagnostics on them, and they were finding Bartonella or Borrelia burgdorferi, so little Lyme's or cat scratch fever. So based off like cats, cat tongues, cat scratches, they carry this disease, and it's spread by fleas. So cats get it from fleas. If I get it right, I better check my facts. And then, so dogs were actually manifesting tumors. And when they dissected the tumors and assessed them on a chemical level, they were finding that in the tumor, which explained why the Lenum was working.
I did the same thing. So with our salves, I took the herbs that I knew, combined them with cannabis, and, I was using them and getting amazing results on getting a tumor, anytime a tumor to fall off within 30 to 45 days. But what was amazing is that I would have clients go, I put it on, and there was one that we had, she refused to have it cut off. The dog had it most of its life, over 10 years. She put it on 2 weeks later, it completely fell off. And it's almost like the body is just wants that one little something to help it do that push and get it out. So literally that's what you really have to question, these amazing things that exist in nature that when we take them or we give them to our animals, help them fight the disease.
Right.
And support the immune system.
It's been around for a long time. People think it's kind of new, but it's even mentioned in the Bible. And so it talks about metastasis in the Bible, which is super interesting. But of course, like dogs, humans are on the rise. And so we have to reflect. I really believe it's the price of convenience.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Preservatives, pesticides,
plastics, stress. There's so many factors. I have a really cute slide, cute cancer slide Unlike all the antagonizing things that can happen. And so I can share that with you if you want. But
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I would love to get your tips and tricks on how to prevent cancer from even coming into your life in the first place. And then what would you do if you did get that diagnosis for your pet? What are the first kind of things you would do to make a decision on what your next steps would be when we come back?
So this is Bruce. Bruce is a 12-year-old pug, and he has had a lot of issues over his life, but for the past several years, he's had a really weird hacking, coughing issue that no one has been able to get under control. It's nothing infectious, it's just kind of a result of his little flat-faced breed and the respiratory issues they usually deal with. And I have finally found something that worked. It's called Breathe by Mycodog. It's a mushroom extract, and it has been incredible how quickly I saw results. Literally overnight, I saw a difference in the hacking and coughing, especially during the night he was doing it. So the Breathe tincture has really made a huge difference for him, not only with his breathing, but just overall supporting his immune system, since he has 2 other dogs in our household that go to daycare every day and bring home various germs and respiratory bugs themselves, and he has been totally healthy and clear of any issues since being on this tincture. So we're just super grateful that finally something is out there for these flat-faced breeds to breathe better and live a happier life.
And we're back with Poppy Phillips. And I feel like if you have animals, you're going to come across that cancer diagnosis. The statistic that we just gave is so true, because I have a rescue farm, and here on my rescue farm, I'm already on my 4th case of cancer. It's everything. And, you don't know what the dog got before because it's a rescue, and you don't know what its environment. But what I do know is that even if you do get that diagnosis, you can help that animal be pain-free and live a quality of life. They don't know they have cancer. Nina, my Doberman, was running around chasing squirrels and bunnies, up until 2 weeks before she passed. So they don't know it. And there's so much you can do and not be out thousands of dollars and your dog suffering and having to go back and forth to a vet office, to test everything. What would you suggest, proactively, what pet parents can do to avoid, to kind of be proactively and not have these toxins or things that do cause cancer in pets?
For me, it's probably diet and environment. So cleaning up the diet, fresh diet. There's so much on raw feeding, or at least slightly cooked feeding, just live, real foods with life force in it really makes a huge difference. I love hearing back from my clients. They're always scared to start raw, and some vets have terrorized them about going to a natural diet and just harass them. But I just had a client yesterday call me who does competitive stock dog trials, and she has 2, one dog's in the Hall of Fame, and it's older and has 2 hip replacements.
Wow.
And she called me and she said, he's doing really, really well on this, raw diet. And every, some people are noticing a difference. I'm like, yeah, it makes a big difference when you're not feeding inflammatory processed food. It's like McDonald's for dogs, kibble is. So hopefully you don't live on McDonald's. And if you do, please rethink your diet right away. But you want life force in your body. You want life force in your food. So food's a primary situation. Detoxification, I love to use soil-based humic and fulvic acid in my practice. I use it for years, for 17 years. And it just cleans up the system so much. It's really amazing. But once you get that diagnosis, and exercise, lifestyle, I'm going to stick to lifestyle. So exercise, it's like the dog Maggie that went out and ran 9 miles a day or something. Dogs were meant to move. We were meant to move. We have legs. We're supposed to move. We're supposed to get our heart rate up. We're supposed to like breathe and get the factory moving. Stagnation in anything, stagnation in water builds like algae. And so anytime we're stagnant, we're in a digression. So stagnation is a horrible thing for all species. But once you get that diagnosis, you have to rethink your system, whether it's mold in your house, whether it's a stressful marriage. I knew my marriage was on the way out when my cat left. My cat fired us and left. I was like, oh, the cat's gone. I'm next. I know it.
No.
So yeah, it was a negative situation. It stressed all of us out, unfortunately. It was an addiction type situation where I had to draw the line. But the cat was the primary, like, peace out. And I was just like, oh, when your cat leaves you, you have a serious problem.
Right.
But yeah. So homeopathy is I think the least talked about and the most awesome effective remedy. I used to be way into herbs. Like I was like herbs. And then I saw the power of homeopathy. It's
just it's beautiful, but it's so hard to understand and use, which is cool because there's so many people who are really good at it. But yeah, it's fascinating to me.
If you rip the right remedy, I've seen animals on death's door pop up and run around the house. Like I've had several calls where people are like, it's time, you know, can you come over? Can you just say goodbye to my pet? And I'm like, okay. And then I get there, I'm like, could you try a remedy? Just try it. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. We already have the appointment booked. I'm like, just try it and slip a remedy in their mouth and they just shake it off and live for another year and a half and die of something totally different.
I love that. We get that a lot with our heel tincture, which is the tincture for the older dogs that are, you know, maybe have autoimmune cancer, seizures, those types of things. And it's the same thing where they were like, we thought for sure it was going to be a couple months and now we're on a year. And it's like, yeah, you're literally giving them something that's removing all inflammation in their entire body. And inflammation is the basis of disease. So you're helping them out. That's what I said. These things exist in nature for a reason, and they're beautiful when they're taken correctly. Poppy, thank you so much for sharing your story and what you know with us. How can people get in touch with you? I know your 2 Facebook groups are amazing and your website. Tell them how they can follow you.
The website is www.equinealt-hai.com. And that's just my general website. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I don't know the links to those.
Just Poppy Phillips. I mean, you've got the best name ever. Best name ever. And she's always doing something interesting and fun on her Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, definitely join them. I know I'm on them now, and you always are sharing great guests and information. And thank you so much for being such a great advocate for our pet animals, all of our animals out there.
It's my pleasure and my honor. Thank you, Angela, for having me. This was great.
Thank you.